everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a video about OBS Ford trucks. I got a couple trucks here I own. I'm going to take you through the trucks, give you a little walk around on them, show you the good, the bad, the ugly, and try to shed some light on problem areas that these trucks have, and if you're shopping for one, what to look out for. White truck, 1997 F350. It's got the Powerstroke diesel in it. It's a four-wheel drive truck, automatic. So Ford OBS trucks refers to 92 to 97 F-150, F-250, F-350, and Super Duty trucks. OBS stands for Old Body Style. Now, these trucks have always been popular. I think this was probably the most iconic version of the F-Series truck ever built. But in recent years, their popularity, especially in the last 2 to 3, has just skyrocketed. Also, along with the popularity, the prices on them have skyrocketed. So I'm going to take you through a tour of the truck. I'm going to show you some good strong points with them, some weak points. I'm going to show you what to look for when you're buying one of these trucks, because if you're in New England or the Northeast like I am right now, finding one of these trucks in good condition is becoming very, very hard to do. Just from people using them as work trucks. Because when people were buying these trucks, especially, you know, when they were new, they were work trucks. Ford, to me, is synonymous with having that work truck mentality. They ride like work trucks, they drive like work trucks. Now they're becoming popular, they're becoming show trucks, they're becoming, you know, garage queens where guys have ones that have 30,000 miles and they want $30,000 for them, and they're worth it to a certain degree, but that's a small percentage. A very, very small percentage of trucks have lived that kind of life. I'm going to show you what I think is a true driver quality truck. As far as modifications, it has the LED headlights, the worn hubs, the 16.5-inch polished aluminum rims. It does have these airbags in the back, and it does have, like I said, kind of an updated heavy-duty super hitch on the back. Besides that, the truck has not been modified. It has not had a tuner put into it. It has not had an aftermarket air filter put into it. The exhaust has been updated to a 4-inch exhaust without a muffler. That is it. And that's actually the best way to buy these trucks, in my opinion. You can modify them through the roof. I mean, sky's the limit. As big as your checkbook will go, you can go. But when you buy these trucks heavily modified like that, you kind of really don't know what you're getting into. You don't know the quality of work that was done, who was doing it. I hate to say it, these trucks now are becoming like older 5-liter Mustangs when I was in high school, early 2000s, trying to buy them. What happened to the Mustangs of then and what's happening to these trucks now is you get a lot of young people that buy these trucks and they're modifying them, and the people working on them just really don't know what they're doing, and they end up sometimes causing more harm than good. So the biggest rust issues that I've seen with these trucks over the years, and the things you really need to look for when you're buying one of these trucks, first and foremost are these radiator supports. This goes for any 92 to 97, whether it's a gas truck or a diesel. These radiator supports right here, on any areas in the country where you get heavy rust, those are the first to go. Where I'm shining the flashlight up in that area, up near the leaf spring, right here, you would see those rot out real bad in that area. They would also rot out right underneath where that body mount is. So those were the areas, whether you had a diesel or you had a gas truck, that are the most susceptible to the next point I'm gonna go to is these frame horns right there. A telltale sign that that is rotted is you'll see these older trucks, and it might be hard to see with the truck in the air, but if you look at the gap between the top of that bumper to the bottom of that lower valance right under the headlight, if you look at one of these trucks and it looks like one side is basically that valance is sitting on the top of the bumper and the other side has a large gap, I would almost guarantee you what has happened is one of these mounts has failed. that bushing with the bolt through it has actually come down and through. So now the cab is actually sitting crooked. So in the front, you look at the radiator support and you look at those cab mounts on the frame. If those are in good shape, you move your way back here. On a diesel in this area, the next thing I'm going to tell you to look at is that engine oil pan. Those are very susceptible, and I've replaced quite a few of them that have been rotted. So that's the next step. After you check the radiator support, you're going to want to look at your oil pan. Where those front cab mounts are the next to go. And when those go, it's a lot of work to fix them. They do sell the patch panels to repair those, but you're talking basically pulling most of the interior out, getting that body up off the frame, undoing that body mount, welding in all new panels, welding in new floor pieces. You're talking a lot of work. So if you're trying to buy one of these trucks and you don't want to put that kind of work into it, if it's got that body cab area rotted in it, that's a no-go. Next on these trucks are the actual floors itself. So you can see on this truck, the floors are very clean. It's been taken care of, but a lot of these trucks, the floors in them are totally gone. There's nothing left of them. They'll have holes, they'll have soft spots. And once that's like that, like I said, it's like the cab mounts. Once you get into that, you're doing floors in this truck. Now, all these parts I'm showing you are available to be replaced, but at what cost and what time and the level and the difficulty, you got to decide. But if you're looking at one of these trucks and you're looking for a solid foundation, if you have a good radiator support, you have a good oil pan, you have good floors, good front cab mounts, you have a lot better chance of doing more work that you want to do to the truck versus work you need to do to the truck. So after the floors and the cab mounts, next, front fenders. In this area, the lower front fenders get it really bad. More often than not, that whole lower valance right there where the light is shining is gone, and most times a good amount into that wheel arch will be gone. These fenders are obviously available aftermarket, you can buy them, but factory fit the best, and factory are getting more and more expensive to find. So that's another thing to consider when you're looking at these trucks. The next is going to be the cab corners. Now, the cab corners on this truck are in pretty good shape. They're not perfect, but I'm going to say they don't look like they've ever been rusted, and they don't ever look like they've been heavily body worked. So now when you're looking at one of these trucks and you see in the ad, typical Ford rust, what typical Ford rust means is above the wheel well, in the fender, maybe in the rockers and cabs, those body mounts and that radiator support. When people say, oh, it has typical Ford rust, that's a quick way of them saying that it probably is going to need the wheel arches replaced, the front fenders replaced, the radiator support replaced, and there's a good chance they could end up needing those front body cab mounts that I just shown you. So on the body, those are your most important areas to look at. If all those are clean, we're going to move on to the next areas I'm going to look at, which is going to be the frame. It's pretty standard with any vehicle. You can tell certain frames that have been painted, like this frame has been coated. This frame has been cleaned and it has been painted, but you can tell when you look at this frame, it's smooth, it's not pitted, it's not heavily, I call textured. Now, you'll have a lot of guys that will take these trucks and they'll undercoat them with the rubberized undercoating. They'll use all different types of products to just blast a hole underneath of these trucks. If you go and look at one of these trucks and the hole underneath has been just lambasted with rubberized undercoating, that is not a good sign. What you want to see is like what you see on my frame there. It's smooth, it's clean, it doesn't show a lot of pitting, it doesn't show a lot of scaling. This is what you want to see. As far as body and frame, those are the most important things to look for. Now, as far as interior goes, I mean, interior to me is very self-explanatory. Clean, you know, not all ripped, not all stained, not all beat up. Smells clean, everything's all put together, there's nothing loose, nothing falling off. That's really all you got to be concerned about. This 7.3 diesel, if I had to estimate, and I don't have the specs right off the top of my head, but I believe they produce somewhere in the high 180 to 200 horsepower, and I believe they're about 400 something foot-pounds of torque, completely stock, unmodified, which is what this truck is. Now, the 7.3 Powerstrokes are probably considered, even till this day, the best engine that Ford ever put in a diesel. Now, Ford did not build these engines. Ford had never built an in-house diesel until the new 6.7 Powerstrokes that are in their trucks now. This was an international built engine, and actually the tow truck I have out there, it's a 98 4400 series or 4700 series flatbed that has pretty much the identical engine in it from International 7.3 turbo diesel. As far as modifications, I mean, obviously air intake, exhaust, hugely popular. You can get a lot out of them. But then you have all your typical, those are what I would call bolt-ons. So for your bolt-on modifications, you have your tuners, your air intakes, you have your downpipes and larger exhaust. That's what I would call bolt-ons. Now, also for these trucks, you got hard parts like you read about. You could do upgraded ball bearing turbos, you could do bigger injectors, you can do custom cams. I mean, like I said before, it's really sky's the limit. How fast do you want to go? How much money you want to spend? But the IDI diesels that came in the earlier trucks, even the turbo IDIs, they're limited. There's only so much you can do with them. And that's why these 94.5 to 97s have just become so popular. With the styling and with the availability of performance upgrades to this engine, it's really the best of both worlds. These 7.3s can, have, and will go bad. I've seen them with cam lobes getting wiped off and higher mileages. I've seen them get cavitation issues where they'll let coolant leak through the blocks because the blocks get pinholes in them. Now, is that common? No, but it happens. I have personally never seen a Powerstroke diesel with more than 400,000 miles on it in person driving on the road. The one I saw with the most mileage had just about 400,000 on it. That's the highest mileage one I've ever seen. I've never seen one of these trucks show 1,000,000 miles. The biggest things to look for on these trucks, engine oil pans being rotted, engine oil cooler leaks are very common, with the wiring underneath the valve covers for the injectors, the glow plugs going bad, the glow plug relays going bad, sometimes the heater and the fuel bowls go bad. Camshaft position sensor is very common failure on these trucks, to the point where a lot of guys would keep a spare one in their glove box and a 10mm wrench so they can change it on the side of the road if they needed to. But besides those issues, they're pretty much set them, forget them. Change the oil. If you're going to tune them up and you're going to run them hard, you got to have your gauges, your EGT, your boost, your trans-tep. You don't want to cook these out. You can cook them out. A lot of boost, a lot of heat, a lot of fuel. You'll burn them out if you go too hard on them. But if you run them safe and you take care of it, this truck will give you a lot of years of use and a lot of reliability without a lot of money out of your pocket. Now here's the best part of looking at any truck or any car you're going to buy. Let's go for a road test. I just very much enjoy driving it, man. I drive it every day as much as I possibly can. I drive the truck because it's a truck. It's what it's made to. It's what it's made to do. It's made to be driven. I don't work it as hard as the F-150. I try to keep it nice because it's almost impossible to find them in decent condition around here. So I mean, I'm not work trucking it, but grocery stores, gas stations, general running around daily. That's why I bought it. Definitely would consider this truck a survivor. The only other vehicle I ever owned that I would consider a true survivor to this level is I had an 86 Mustang that was pretty much unmodified, original, never messed with, and I drove that like I drove this daily. I drove it through the winter. I mean, obviously snowstorms and stuff. I had plow trucks, I had four-wheel drive, so if the weather was crappy for a couple days, I drove one of my real work trucks or one of my other vehicles. But for the most part, man, I rock that 86 Fox body everywhere. That's how I treat this truck. I got to go pick something up. I got to go see my brother who lives a few towns over. I jump in the diesel. Let's go. It's clean, but it's not too nice where you don't want to drive it. And that, to me, are my favorite vehicles. I've owned them every which way. I've owned them where they're so nice you don't want to drive them. You don't even want to see them get dirty. And I've owned them to the point where they're just straight up work vehicles, utility vehicles, daily driven. My favorite are the survivors.